We're now November 2019. I had another transplant review. The NTBNP protein again was slightly raised, but I got the plan to go skiing. It's interesting, again, the different perspectives of doctors in terms of whether I could ski or not. So my main doctor in London is not a skier and is a very cautious person and was quite apprehensive, but she would always then say, speak to the other doctors. Not I know now which doctors to ask, but I remember being in Cambridge and speaking to them, and a number of them do ski, and was like, look, again, if you feel like you can do it, give you sign off to go. I'm not going to stop you doing what you want to do. The challenge, again, at this stage was I didn't need a transplant at the moment, and I was given an all clear, and that was great, and I was looking forward to getting going. My NTP, the protein level was raised, but they gave me the sign off, and I was good to go. The whole question of the transplant was really about quality of life, and the fact is if I can do the things that I want to do, and I feel okay, that's still a main driver alongside all the body and the markers and everything that was going on. The great thing about Morzine, where I was going, was around 1,000 meters high, so it wasn't a significantly high resort. I remember I registered again with the doctors when I arrived there, and it was really funny actually. One of them was super excited because they'd just done 6 months training in a cardiac unit. And so when I mentioned the drugs I was on, he was like, oh yeah, I know the person in Tonon nearby, and he's the main cardiologist. And it was just like, again, to give me a sense of peace of mind and that I had everything covered that I needed there. I got into a great routine, again, with my clients. Over New Year, we had some friends visit, and things were going generally very well, and I felt really good. It was then, though, kind of February 2020, went back to London for a friend's 40th birthday, which was interesting. I was there for the weekend, and again, it really made me appreciate living in the mountain and the lifestyle that I'd created and what I was doing, and how I definitely made the right decision. And I remember being on the tube during rush hour just in that couple of days when I was there, I was just like, oh my God, how people do this every day, I do not know. And I know it's for some people great, but for me, it was just a real reminder of I'm doing something, just such a dream after 20 years being back living again in the mountains. It was on the 14th of February, I remember, and then getting back from London after that few days, I started not feeling well. I was walking past, there was like a rotisserie chicken place in town, and I couldn't smell it. And I just thought, oh, and at the time, didn't think anything of it, carried on. Friends arrived from out of town, and I remember going to eat for a curry, couldn't taste anything. And my partner was like, James, you'd never eat anything like this. I'm like, oh, I thought it's got to be healthy for me, it's going to be good. Coughing, feeling terrible. I was coughing up blood as well, and I was just not feeling great. I remember speaking to family, speaking to my mum, oh, have some soup, just rest, you'll be fine. And obviously within the next few weeks, more and more from a COVID perspective was being talked about, but even smell and taste wasn't even on the list yet for being one of the symptoms. We know now what happened since, and from a skiing perspective, the resort was open until the 12th of March, so another 3-4 weeks or so. Obviously in the news, things were getting more serious and concerned, and there was the outbreaks in Italy and the ski resorts. I had no association that it had been COVID or was COVID. My flatmate also was coughing. She was a massage therapist, so would see a lot of people as well. So between us, we're trying to keep out of each other's ways, but nothing like social distancing that we were then to discover. My partner flew home. He'd been there, flew home like around the 12th, just before lockdown happened. Lockdown happened a week before in France than it did in the UK. And everything shut down. It was a really surreal time. My heart stuff, again, at the time, wasn't a concern, fortunately. Again, I think it's about information and knowing. Had we known then what we knew now, I'd be much more concerned. And I say coughing up blood, it wasn't great, but it wasn't significant. It was a little bit. It wasn't constant, but the cough was there for a while. It was really aching. I remember in the bottom of my back, and you look at all the symptoms that then came to light, and I think I had all of them. And it took probably a good 6 weeks to be feeling better, but I was also very tired. But again, at the time, maybe this is historically growing up and not being that ill and just getting on with it and resting, listening to my body, fine. And I remember some days when skiing was still open, so the beginning of March, going out and just feeling like really tired and being like, right, I need to go back. And so I did a run and went back to bed. And so that took time. Everything closed down. Should we come back to the UK? And again, now the elevated concern with my health condition, but then thinking if I've probably had it now, or even then I still didn't think I'd had it, but now in hindsight, 100% it must have been it, and made a decision, let's stay in the mountains and we'll stay together, because we'd rented till the end of April. What's the point in going back to London when we were seeing in the news there's not enough toilet paper for everyone and all this like nonsense going on? And there we were in the mountains, set up for tens of thousands of people, but there were literally a few thousand people now left in resort because everyone left. It was like the Saturday, literally people arrived and they got sent home that day. And it was just a bit crazy. And I remember the last day of the season, which I was feeling better, there was a ski resort nearby that we went. I've got these great photos that I'll share that you can see, just being almost top of the world and being like, okay, wow, no idea what was about to really happen in the world to close down. France were very strict when they introduced these attestations, I can't pronounce it, but this piece of paper you had to sign every time you left the house. You had to be within a kilometre of your house, and if you went longer or a different way, they'd fine you, and they were much more strict on it. But on the plus side, I was living in the mountains, beautiful view, it was pretty much sunny every single day. I had this like deck chair, I'd sit outside, and I was doing my coaching clients, and again, Zoom kind of came into its own, and I'd been using Zoom for a year or more before this all started, so a lot of my clients were like, oh, you were on this early. I was just really appreciative, and again, as I got better and better, again, in hindsight, thinking I must have had it. And my flatmates also, they stayed almost till the end of April. It was a really great time actually also to be in the mountains without skiing and to appreciate that environment even more, and just so grateful that, and as London and the UK was getting worse, being out there, it just felt like the best decision, again, in hindsight. My partner being in the Netherlands, and because of travel restrictions, I just thought, why don't I go then from France to the Netherlands at the end? Fortunately, this was all just before pre-Brexit stuff. Brexit already happened, but it meant that I could still be in Europe. Also medication-wise, the pharmacies were amazing. I just took my existing prescription and they just gave me the prescription. So that was also something like peace of mind to know that was possible. That was just, I showed them my existing prescription and they helped sort that out. So that was great. I remember it was so surreal flying to the Netherlands. There were 2 flights that day from Geneva Airport, one flying to Italy, one flying to the Netherlands. There were 20 of us on the flight, obviously all wearing masks and social distancing. It was really surreal. KLM flew as well throughout the whole pandemic, and they didn't stop once. And I think they were one of the airlines in Europe that kept people moving, and it felt like a repatriation flight. Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out the British Heart Foundation, Cardiomyopathy UK, and Save 9 Lives for more information. Why not comment on the video? Tell me what you think or ask a question, and subscribe to the channel to continue to follow my journey.